We have another lampricide permit, and I'll be perfectly honest, I have not really stared at it all that much, but this is for the Winooki River. And we have the link that's in the agenda goes to the folder, which has all of the, I mean, it's got the permit, yeah. But it's got their, let's see if I can pull up the right one here.
Things stated Vermont public Wi-Fi. Can I use that?
Yeah.
Yes,
I can use that. Okay.
that's what I'm on, yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's what I want.
There was the one document that was the actual application.
Right.
What's their reason for applying? Can you see what they have done? Is it?
Right, this is going to be getting the nuisance control, so I keep pulling up here.
Or-
Yeah, so much volume of stuff. It's hard to-
It's the one dated February 22nd.
Thanks, that's very helpful.
Must be when they were uploaded. Do we need John back in here? John Carr?
No, because I think he washes his hands of this.
Smart man.
Maybe this is language from the.
Rich, why am I having problems finding it, you know?
I'm usually the one who has trouble
Okay.
finding stuff. I found
There's-
it.
The one that's called,
It's,
application, it starts with the
it's application, yeah.
whole string of numbers, 2, 3, 1, 5,
Application
4.
admin.
Mhm.
That's the application. Is that what you're looking for?
36 pages.
We're all trying to open it at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So do they have, okay, I mean, the ANC is their aquatic uses. So, okay, all right.
And
so
are-
there we go.
Isn't it basically using the form for aquatic nuisance control as opposed to? I don't see some of the check boxes like economic need and,
Yeah,
you know, that checkbox?
yeah,
Not there.
exactly, so, right.
Yeah, the requirements, the boxes are slightly different,
Yeah.
between the two permits.
Because it always annoyed me that permits would say enhancement of an endangered species or something like that as one of the needs. And it was clearly secondary to the primary goal of the whole program.
Yeah. You're talking about lake sturgeon.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. But it's really there for lake trout.
Yep.
And
Right.
land salmon, yeah. Yeah, I never bought into that,
Yeah.
impact that,
I suppose they're not, maybe
That,
there isn't actually a.
sea lamprey for that impacting to that extent. The,
Well,
Right.
let's talk about that in the permit, that it was more lamprey, wounding
Yeah.
on the sturgeon, and so therefore, we're protecting an
Yeah.
endangered
Mhm.
species.
the lab studies, they showed, they stuck a sturgeon, they stuck a bunch of sturgeon in a fish tank, and then they threw some lamprey in, and of course, the lamprey got on.
So it wasn't based on fish
Yeah,
that were being caught out of
think-
the lake that had a
I
lot of
think that,
lamprey
yeah.
on them.
Yeah, I think some of the evidence indicates that they are being preyed on. But it's hard to know what the population levels are of lake sturgeon. Then reduced, obviously.
Right,
But
well,
in terms of the total population, knows?
Well, I was wondering about that because the two have coexisted for ever since the glacier
Yeah.
moved out of there, right? And,
Mm,
and I'm wondering, are we breeding a new super strain of sea lamprey by killing off a percentage of the population that maybe were more tolerant or tolerable by the sturgeon? And now we're breeding this new race of sea lamprey because we're getting a certain percentage of the population all the time. Maybe they are becoming more parasitic on sturgeon because of our meddling in the system.
That's possible, yeah.
Let me tell you one piece of that. The piece of that you said where they have co-evolved since the last glaciation. The applicant has never accepted the fact that sea lamprey were native.
I thought that we've gone over that 100 times.
We have,
103, actually.
but the applicant has never accepted the fact
Interesting.
that they could be native or that they are native. And they are still assuming and treating it as if it's invasive and introduced.
Oh, that's not gonna get us anywhere, Jim. I mean, it just won't. I mean,
Yeah, well, I'm just responding
Yeah.
to his comments.
It's a.
Yeah.
It's a public, it's for the public. It's to minimize opposition to the treatments.
Do you want feedback already?
well,
Yeah, when we.
yeah, well, I guess, yeah, I mean, and maybe I'll just turn it over to you, Rich. I mean, I'm not actually, I mean, the cover letter from Brad Young is basically saying they're simultaneously applying for,
Both permits.
yeah, but I'm not finding the T&E species. In the
Yeah, it
Winooski,
should
we
be in
would,
the application, yeah,
okay,
right, for fish, it's eastern sand darter, channel darter, lake sturgeon, and American brook lamprey,
okay, all right.
and then there's several mussels as well.
I guess, yeah, is anyone actually finding the take permit in here?
Yeah,
You are,
well, I did it at home. I mean, I guess I just clicked on, what did I click on? Wasn't it right in your agenda?
well, my agenda just goes to the folder,
It's,
right?
Yeah, okay, it goes to the folder and then,
It starts with the numbers.
Okay, that is it then,
23154.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Application. Yeah.
I can fill in the void while we're searching.
Right.
Well, no, go for it, yeah.
Give us
Yeah.
overview?
Yeah, I'm not sure what depth you want me to go into, but I just took a look at it this morning and just re-looked at it now. It doesn't seem like there's anything new with this one. Nothing had really changed, including the concentration that they're proposing, which is 1.3 times the maximum lethal concentration for sea lamprey. They wish to apply it between 12 and 14 hours, which is pretty much pretty standard. I looked at the pre-treatment sea lamprey surveys, and the numbers that they got seem to justify application for another treatment. They seem fairly high. Let's see. Looking at past treatments, the non-target impacts have not been severe. The one thing I'm noting is American brook lamprey had higher numbers before the 2004 treatment. And we had I was there during the discussion, heavily involved in that discussion. Was estimated based on data that we'd lose about 80% of the population. That's what they did in the cage studies. So since then, their pre and post treatment surveys have not found any American lamprey. Up until 2015, they found 3. Nothing was found in the pre-treatment survey for 2020. The 2020 treatment, they found 1 dead American lamprey. There is a population of unknown size in Sunderland Brook, which is a tributary just below the application point. They either drip lampricide into that, or they use a brick of lampricide, TFM, to not allow sea lamprey to go up into Sunderland Brook during the treatment. So they block them, which seems reasonable enough. It'd be nice to know what the American brook lamprey population looks like in Sunderland Brook as a recolonizing source, because it's the Fish SAG's opinion that the population has been significantly reduced below the application point since 2004. There has been 5 treatments since 04, counting the 04 treatment. This application, I think, is for 2 treatments. That's the standard practice now, 4 years apart. In terms of the other 3 listed species, American brook lamprey is threatened, by the way. The endangered species, channel darters and lake sturgeon, the Fish and Wildlife Department conducted a non-target, 3-year non-target study, population study on the 2 darters in the Winooski and other tributaries, and found a fairly strong population there over the 3 years. Unfortunately, they didn't follow it up after a particular treatment, so we didn't get a handle on what actual impact was by them going back after the treatment and resampling the same areas. Got an email from Bernie Bianca asking if we wanted to get together again, the darter, channel darter, stonecat work group who devised the study in the first place. And I haven't gotten much back from anybody, so I told them I was game, and Jim Detzler from DEC was game, but we haven't heard from anybody else. So whether that's going to go forward and spawn another series of work, that will definitely be in our recommendations, the Fish SAG's recommendations for the next treatment, that they resume the study, pre and post. Lake sturgeon, as long as they treat later in the year, October, lake sturgeon are particularly vulnerable when they're young, but they quickly gain resistance to TFM and niclosamide at the end of the first year, which is handy. I think only 1 dead, 1 non-target has been collected from the 5 treatments. You can take that or leave it, because lake sturgeon they're not a littoral species, they're a deep water species. And the post-treatment mortality studies can only go as far down as visible, as the bottom's visible. So you're missing quite a bit. You're missing all the fish that don't have gas bladders and are bottom feeding fish. So take that with a grain of salt. I know that's basically my summary. Again, I think the important part is that they're not suggesting any changes in treatment duration or concentration. The fish sag probably would have interest in finding out what condition the American brook lamprey are in Sunderland Brook. I'm going to suggest that. And what else was it that I wanted to look at?
I mean, Rich, you might have said this earlier and I missed it. If they could, would sea lamprey go into Sunderland Brook to spawn?
Possibly,
Okay, yeah.
possibly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they probably have in the past have surveyed that
Yeah,
and
okay.
decided that, nah, the sea lamprey are usually in larger streams, but
Mhm,
not
okay.
all the time.
Yeah,
Not all the
okay.
time.
There, I'm looking in this application, 36 pages. So like table 6 has larval densities of silver lamprey. Is there that same table for American lamprey?
Well, yeah, that's another issue that I'm writing my notes this morning, exclamations. What they do with survey results and non-target results is they put all the non-lamprey fish in one table and all the lamprey fish in the other table.
Mhm.
American brook lamprey are a fish and they're a non-target. Silver lamprey are a fish and they're a non-target. Why don't they put that in the non-target list? But then you list all the lampreys such that they're all negative. They're all in the same category.
Right, and they're by, at least in that table 4, they're by percentages of the total lampreys,
Yeah,
which is not a helpful way to.
that's not helpful at all to me.
Right, but table 6 is pretty helpful, but it's just for silver lamprey, because it does show, like even for that, which is not, it's a species of conservation interest, but it does show like, and maybe this isn't related to the treatments, but shows some pretty stark declines in
Yeah.
larval densities. It'd be
Well,
helpful to know that for, American.
yeah,
brook
the
lamprey.
experience shows that they rebound just like sea lampreys. They're slightly more tolerant, but insignificantly.
Mhm.
So, American brook lampreys are supposed to be 44% more tolerant.
Right, yeah, it's
Last
helpful to
time-
see the data on that, yeah,
But no, we're following silver lamprey
yeah.
populations. I think there's 11 records. So they're in more areas, there are more streams that aren't treated.
Mhm.
But I believe it is a species of special conservation need
That's what it says.
because of the lampricide.
Wow, okay,
But it's not I think it's a medium priority.
yeah,
So I would be concerned with American brook lampreys. I mean, that's our concern. What to do about it in a permit in terms of setting conditions. You know, you get to a certain point in concentrations where it's not effective and it's not worth doing the treatment. And we've been there, done that before early.
well, that does seem like at least helpful addition is, and maybe that is in some of the other documentation, is having them report on not percentage, but actual numbers. Right,
Yeah,
the
well,
way that they're presenting this is not.
Yeah, the annoying thing was when I was reading the application, they were listing the survey numbers for all 3 species,
Mhm.
but they didn't list the numbers. They had minute sized, 3 molecule sized pie graphs, and it showed a little bit of a yellow, which represented 1 American brook lamprey, 2 American, I don't know.
Interesting, yeah.
There's no way, just list the numbers, please.
Right.
And that's probably will be one of our,
To the
one
table.
of our conditions.
Mhm.
Please list the numbers separately.
Yep.
So we can, I mean, it's not that we're gonna take it for absolute value, but it's something. Yeah, it's something. It's an indicator.
I think that's one of the few things you can ask for is changes in reporting.
Yeah.
Or improvement in reporting that you might possibly get. Improvement in reporting or additional data that they have, but they're just not reporting clearly.
Yeah, it's admittedly a minor thing, but it helps in evaluating the post-treatment reports, you know.
Right.
Um,
And it would also, I think, be useful, and I don't know, and I haven't read it all carefully, but if they would actually show, with their non-target surveys, as you said, what percentage of the stream bottom
yeah,
do they think, so in other words, how representative do they think
Yeah.
that the non-target data really is? I mean, sometimes I've seen that figure, and maybe if you read this more carefully, thought in here, but like 5 to 10% seems to be about the max that they could hope to get in a non-target survey.
yeah, well, it's, the first two treatments, they did the entire visible length of 10.4 miles.
Really?
And after a while, they switched probably, I can't remember, probably 2008, 2012, they switched to 20%. But that's 20% of the visible area. If it
Yeah.
drops off fast, again, you're down to 5% of the total. And as I mentioned, if you're looking for dead sturgeon or bullheads or catfish, you're gonna miss them.
I think I should just make that clear in the report.
Yeah, they do. I mean, like they issue the percentage of length done, and it amounts to about 2 miles.
Yeah.
And it's an effort to do that. I can see why they wouldn't want to do the full thing. After so many treatments and so many streams and rivers, we're beginning to get the picture of non-target impact. And while initially, when the program was new, they'd get hot pockets and you'd get kills of fish. They have seemed to iron out the distribution issues in terms of the product with boost points and so forth and so on. The methodology.
Well, Ken, are you still on? Well, you see you there. Are you engaged?
Typing again.
It's the post lunch nap time.
Yeah. Well, I'll mention it since it'll be in the recording. So Secretary Moore was really, yeah, I'll get to in a sec, Stephanie. Secretary Moore was very thought that the invertebrate SAG really should go to the Champlain Basin program to get some put in a proposal for monitoring. And I mean, however that might be, even if it's not pre-post, but trying to get some better baseline data on mussel populations. And I have talked to some folks who are sort of, upstream in the funding of the basin program, and they would be really interested in funding that as well. It's possible too, some more funding for darter work and trying to get some better information there. So that might be worthwhile. I might have mentioned this before, but some folks in the Great Lakes Fisheries Commission who are doing some more work in the Great Lakes are finding some stronger public sentiment against lampricide, and they're actually trying to do some social surveys around public acceptance of the practice. And I don't know I guess I'm probably the one who's hanging out with social scientists probably more than the rest of you, but I mean, I think there would be some possibilities there to look at social acceptance of lampricide application also, just to kind of see, the wounding rates for lake trout are up above the threshold, but last year they were both below. Lake trout and salmon were both below the threshold. Because of the natural reproduction in lake trout, they've decreased the stocking rates. So there's a lot of things that seem to be going in favor of lake trout populations right now. And, again, just sort of thinking about how much lamprey control is really limiting the population, essentially. So I think there's some, some bigger picture things
Mhm.
going on that, are, I don't know, just kind of worth keeping an eye on, but I would say certainly for the invertebrate sag.
I'll let- I'll
Yeah,
let,
yeah.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Go for it, Stephanie.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to mention that the agency now has an opportunity to comment on these applications for aquatic nuisance control permits. And Pam Breyer, who you met last meeting,
Yeah.
did review the permit, and I just wanted to give you the thoughts that were shared by Pam.
Okay.
She's not on the call today, but all three of the pesticides are registered in the state of Vermont. Obviously, a necessity prior to using a pesticide in the state of Vermont. That the application rates haven't actually been decided. I think that they have to go through some chemistry testing to determine the actual amount of pesticides to be used. However, they do have a spec, which I think was mentioned earlier. But as part of our request, because we don't know exactly what's going to be used as of yet, we've asked that that information be shared with the agency prior to application based on their test data. I guess, let's see, specifically the agency requests all data that support the determination of the maximum lethal concentration, or MLC, and the maximum allowable concentration, MAC, that be provided to us. And then the agency, as a matter of practice, actually witnesses these applications with a pesticide inspector. And then they'll be able to review the application in terms of the actual concentration that's being applied in the waters. So I just wanted to share that information with y'all.
Thanks for
And
that,
if you had
Stephanie.
questions,
Yeah,
let me know. Again, because Pam's not on the call, I may not be able to answer your questions regarding the application of the pesticide, but I'd be happy to take your questions and then be able to report back to the committee at a later date.
okay. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was just curious about this. You're mentioning that some questions about the extent to which the lampricides are limiting population. Where is that coming from?
Limiting lake trout populations, you mean?
Oh, I thought you meant lamprey population.
Oh, no, lake trout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not always hitting the targets. In fact, in 2008, the program was on the verge of extinction. And they placed all their marbles basically in one bucket. And they said, if this doesn't work, we're terminating. In 2008, really knocked the populations down, and so they continued. This was Fish and Wildlife Department at the time,
Right.
I believe. But the targets were set a long time ago, and I'm not sure how realistic they are, how applicable they are to Lake Champlain. I know they looked at the Great Lakes targets, but they didn't emulate them because of the conditions are different. Champlain is smaller.
Yeah.
Talking about wounding.
The wounding targets, yeah.
Yeah, which would be, would be another really interesting social science question on social acceptability of.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, I mean, what's that target based on? Is it based on essentially fishermen's preferences, or is it based on something about the lake trout or salmon breeding?
Yeah,
success?
and it's further complicated by the fact that silver lamprey are predaceous too. They're just smaller and they make smaller holes.
Sure.
And I question Brad over how confident are you in discriminating between a sea lamprey hit and a silver lamprey hit, because that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said he was confident. I'm confident in Brad.
Right.
Do stocking rates figure into this at all? Like we're stocking, I don't know if we're stocking Lake Champlain essentially.
It's still lake trout.
With
Yeah.
lamprey food.
Yeah, that's been an issue. That's been a concern. I think the stocking rates have gone down.
Okay.
They've reduced them. Ellen Marsden has shown that there's new indications that lake trout is spawning naturally. in parts of the lake, near the breakwater, in fact, in the harbor. So that's good news. As far as Atlantic salmon goes, we'll probably
Yeah.
continue to stock them.
Unless we don't have brood stock in a little while.
Yeah, right.
You like mud puppy feedback or?
Yes, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think as most people here know, mud puppy is not listed. And so it's not one of the threatened or endangered species listed there, but it is a species that has taken some big hits, over 500 killed in the Memorial River. And there are concerns, some from other states, from the New York DEC, about certain age classes that were removed from the population. The other thing that I should mention too, and just to remind you guys all, is that mud puppy is a long-lived species. You know, it could live 25, 30 years. And when you're hitting breeding adults in a long-lived species, it has more of an impact than if you're hitting a short-term explosive breeder. We have, you probably read in the permit that they criticize non-target mortality as being used as evidence of decline. And I can understand that, but on the other hand, in most cases, that is all we have for data, is the non-target mortality. There are two cases where we have more data. One is Lewis Creek, where other methods were tried and we couldn't find any mud puppies. So it does appear that mud puppies in Lewis Creek were reduced, either eliminated or reduced to a level where you just are not going to pick them up in trapping unless you had some pretty extensive trapping. The other piece of data that we have is from the Memorial River, which very much looks like it's our best and strongest native population in the state. And the good piece of news there is that Mark Ferguson has been moving mud puppy upstream of the treatment area, and he has been able to trap a significant number of mud puppy from the area that was treated. So that's a good piece of news that, okay, there's still mud puppies there. So that's a useful piece of information. But I think we should keep in mind that appears to be our best and strongest piece of habitat, whereas the Winooski River, the numbers they're showing us here for mortality started out at 16, and they've been fairly low ever since then. And it does raise some concern to me that maybe this isn't a particularly strong mud puppy population. And if that's the case, is this a population that might potentially be eliminated or reduced to particularly low levels? Do we have a lot of data? No, we don't. And I expect that our SAG, after we next meet, will essentially forward our concerns that would be pretty much what you've seen in the past. Happy to answer any questions, but that's generally where we are. There is certainly mortality of other amphibians. There wasn't a report. I didn't print up that particular page, but the situation with the other amphibians is they're much more widespread. They're not limited to the same habitat that the spawning sea lion prey are limited to, but you know, they're pretty much either statewide or Champlain Basin wide. This is the one that's of most concern. And for John, it would be nice to know from ice fishermen what they're catching, if they're catching mud puppies out on the lake. We get that data for some reason from Connecticut River ice fishermen. And
How do you get it from the Connecticut River ice fishermen?
they send me stuff.
Self-reporting.
Yeah.
Individual
Oh,
people.
so,
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But we know that they're, you know, that's not a native mud puppy population.
Mhm.
And it's also a population where lamprey are protected. I mean, not lamprey. Sea lamprey are protected in the Connecticut River. So it's a whole different situation, but it would be really interesting to know, or to encourage ice fishermen to report catches, either to you or somewhere, so that we could get that data. It seems like that would be pretty easy to do.
Like an
We just don't have ice in the Champlain Valley anymore.
Champlain doesn't freeze anymore. So.
It's all unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We lost the last few ice fishermen that we had. They drifted away. Yeah.
Mentioned that the secretary suggested that maybe the ISAG investigate applying for Lake Champlain Basin
Funding
funding.
for whatever it might make sense, but mussel monitoring with trying to either get baseline data or some better data on, direct applications.
So Mark Fergus, like Fish and Wildlife probably cannot, would they be eligible for that money?
Don't know.
Okay.
For the
It
Lake
might-
Champlain Basin program?
Yeah,
Yeah.
going to the department.
Mhm.
We've done that, yeah.
That was
Okay.
the mud puppy
So we-
money actually
Yeah.
was, yeah,
Some of it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I was just, I think, was it 2 cycles ago? No, I guess it was the last one. Was it in the Pulteney? I can't remember where. I mean, I think some of your group had tried to do some sampling there. I think we got a,
Long ago in the Pulteney.
I thought this was more recent.
Well, they did
Yeah.
the rescue operation in the Pulteney
Okay.
this past year.
No,
We have that
mussel-
rescue
mussel.
operation.
Yeah.
But I'm
Oh,
wondering,
you're talking mussels?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
okay, but I'm also wondering whether would there be a need for any of the basin money, maybe for herp work, maybe for mud puppies as well, if that were an option, if there was more,
Certainly it'd be helpful to have some real data from these rivers.
yeah. Okay. Talk about it in a sec.
Yeah. Will there be, is there a fish sag meeting?
We haven't discussed it yet.
Okay,
Your agenda was the first I
Okay.
knew of
yeah.
the applications.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, I was gonna say in terms of timing, I mean, they want comments by the 9th of September, which is probably before we're gonna meet again. I mean, we haven't set a September meeting date, but typically we're kind of in mid-September somewhere, or even in October, so I'm
Okay.
guessing we're gonna end up with a vote by mail, unless we wanna have and we could do a online hour-long meeting or something like that would be another possibility.
By the way, Kent is on a fire call. For those of you who know.
Oh.
And he's also he did mention that he's been telling the mussel folks about this.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've been trying to keep him in the loop, so. Okay.
So, yeah, sorry about that, guys. I'm back. I had to run out to a fire call. I'm really sorry.
No worries.
But yeah,
Brian?
thanks, Brian, for
Yeah.
echoing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for your service, Ken. Appreciate it. Okay, so the one item of new business that I had, which is something that has come up in past meetings, we've just never really gotten there, is there like an appetite or a desire maybe to think about some other way of creating recovery plans for species that are not 50-page documents that, just detail the history of the species in the state of Vermont, all their, life history attributes and that sort of thing. But I was kind of thinking like a 2 to 3 page recovery plan that, obviously you've got to have some natural history, habitat, threats, those sorts of things, but really kind of focus on, what would a recovery goal be? And maybe that's, not actually a population number, but maybe that's some sort of an index. What would the timeline look like and what sort of funding might be needed, sort of a classic like the federal endangered species. And I guess I mean, I guess to some extent, this is a SAG question, is to say, would SAGs be interested in trying to just pick one species that might be, something that's feasible and give it a shot? Like, what would a really, sort of short recovery plan look like? And part of the reason I bring this up is because this was something that we, I think, as opposed to designating critical habitat for every species in the House bill, actually said recovery plans might actually be much more useful to have than that. And so thinking, would it make sense to actually have the SAGs give it a try? Like, pick one species, a 3-pager or something like that, and see what it might look like.
Alan, it'd be good to remember that wildlife action plan is being worked on now.
Yeah,
And it would include a lot of that information. And
yeah, that's a good
a lot of the
point. Yeah,
people who are on SAGs are working on it.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
In order to, not reinvent the wheel, people should refer to the WAP. By the time, I mean, it's out next year, but
Yeah,
I'm certain that the information that's been gathered so far is good
yep, yeah,
and can be exchanged.
that's a
I'm sure
good
there's-
point.
Yeah, you could almost just lay out what these short recovery plans could include and then just make sure you're populating them along with the swap process. And
Mhm.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
You do more than one. Actually,
Yeah,
so greedy, Ron.
there's, there's interest in the fish group to condense the wildlife action plan report, species report pages, because they're long, 6,
Yeah.
7 pages.
Yeah,
And a lot of it's redundant. So we're gonna look into that.
that's excellent.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, we didn't talk about swap today, but condensing and or making different products for different audiences that are usable, digestible. That's all like top of the radar for the steering committee.
That's good, because I get frustrated sometimes, over forms and I think, what? They mentioned that in this page. Why are you doing it here?
Oh, you're talking about the endangered species. Okay.
The species, individual species.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really like your idea, Alan. I mean, it's, what do I know? Because I haven't been in that world in a long time, but it does seem to me that the process for developing a recovery plan is intimidating.
yeah.
Because the expectations are high, that it's going to be this comprehensive set of information.
Mhm.
It's going to lead you ultimately to the goals and the strategies and the schedule. But ultimately,
Yeah.
that's really what we want.
Right.
So
Yeah.
your idea for a pilot project makes good sense to me.
Mhm.
Just give it a whirl.
And just do credit. I think Kent came up with this for inverts, right? Because he got, or maybe it was your idea,
Ken
but
and I have we've both
Mutual-
talked about it.
mutual,
Yeah,
overview.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
yeah,
I think it's a good idea as well. And my second, what John said, that the process itself can be intimidating and really can slow down. It has, for some of our recovery plans that we've experienced, taken multiple years
Yes.
to get a recovery plan written. And then and one of them went through the commissioner and came back, and then I think it went to you and came back.
but all about cover art. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Timber rattlesnake, or either timber rattlesnake.
I think it was. I thought it was.
Remember that?
Well, now-
Didn't they end up in your hands eventually?
Yes.
Yes, it went,
That's right.
yeah. And then eventually. What's the matter? The commissioner didn't want my name on it. So he had to
There's
take.
no point in going back.
Yeah. But as I recall, it was like $10,000 that was allocated for somebody to put that together,
Okay,
to draft it initially.
yeah.
And so it's costly,
Mhm.
that process, and it's slow and it's intimidating and kind of gets in the way of itself. And so
Yeah.
if we could come up, even if you came up with a 2-stage process, which is like okay, this is what we'll have for a recovery plan until sometime in the future. If we ever get more money,
Mhm.
we'll expand on it, or, we'll add information to it, or maybe it's a continuing work in progress, but some way to get started with, there are many species that, are listed, well, speaking from her perspective, that don't have recovery plans.
Okay, so dictated by your chair. Ken, go for it.
Just gonna say I'll volunteer to do one to try it out, since I'm the one that started chewing on it with you, so.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love the idea that they're short, and I love the idea that they're living documents that we can, just start to get things down and get movement on some of these species. Or not, like some of these species, there's nothing you can do, right?
See, John,
See, John.
Put me
Yeah,
down.
thanks for that. Yeah, all right. Thanks, Ken.
And we can do a herp, Ken?
No.
Muscles are herbs, aren't they?
Just pick an easy one. Is
Yeah,
there one for timber rattlesnake, for example?
Do we have a recovery plan? Yeah,
We do, yeah.
Yeah, we
All
do.
yeah.
right, darn.
Yeah, and Luke, Groff, Fish and Wildlife herpetologist, they're really spending a lot of time, working on rattlesnakes, so
Yes.
Yeah.
they're following through with it.
I know it's for me, so I don't want to bring up a big new discussion item, but during the course of this meeting, we suggested a number of potential invites for
Yeah,
this meeting,
yeah.
which is exciting and on theme with my new item. So the tricolored bat is pending federal listing, and we haven't had a discussion
Mhm.
this group. I don't know if we really need to get into the weeds like in this venue. I also know that Alyssa Bennett is stretched beyond thin always.
Because of these
Yeah.
uplistings.
But I wonder if even remotely, if we could get her to give us like a 15-minute highlights reel at the next meeting, or some, or
Yeah,
bullet point email blast or something, just to inform the committee.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, we actually, I mean, we even have
And
some information already developed, because we see the northern long-eared bat too. So, would you want her to, present on just the ecology of the species or what the uplisting would mean? Or yes?
I mean, yes, and yes, I would think most relevant to, what we discuss in this committee would be implications for making mitigation conservation measures in the context of permitting and projects.
Yeah, and the reality is we unfortunately we don't get a heads up. Like, we don't know until it's out, like what the uplisting will actually mean in terms of process.
Right.
And in terms of the changes needed.
Right.
You mean until it's like published?
Yeah,
in the Federal Register?
until it's out and Fish and Wildlife starts doing, US Fish and Wildlife starts doing it'll do a bunch of webinars to let people know what it all means to them and what you have to do for consultation.
Yeah.
And we don't get any sort of heads up on that. We find out when everyone else does.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do they essentially create a recovery plan? When something becomes federally listed, that essentially the state could borrow from, or?
Not always, not really. And it's more that there ends up being a federal consultation process for any federal nexus projects. So, and then everything else is voluntary. So the regulated community, if they don't have a federal nexus, they don't have funding, or it's not on federal lands or with federal staff or some kind of nexus, it's pretty much voluntary. They have to run a project through their system. So
In the same vein, certainly you're aware, but we expect Woodrow to be listed.
that will be threatened though, which isn't as, impactful on processes as endangered.
So I'll say it's unique in that it will be our first federally listed, even if it's just threatened. It'll be a federally listed herb. And it's not one that we would have recommended for listing
Mhm.
based on what's going on in Vermont.
Right,
Yep.
right.
So that's interesting. I mean, doesn't matter.
So that might end up having a 4D rule, which, you know, has things like excluding operations or projects during a certain time of year, so it doesn't interfere with the species and usually not as many hoops to jump through for that one. My eye is always on, you know, do these things add complexity bureaucratically, or do they really actually prevent loss? You know, and I think oftentimes it's a little of both.
Or like 70-30.
Yeah, something, yeah, very.
And there's an unannounced expectation for one more species, which you probably know.
Mhm.
One more herb species.
Which one?
No,
Can I tell?
I guess we're not supposed to say.
Oh,
Oh,
secret.
Big secret.
national, what?
Is it the one that like everyone like keeps talking about?
Is Vermont, is federal or Vermont?
Well, yeah, there's a
He's talking about federal.
federal,
Mhm.
the wood turtle and then another herb. But they have some guidelines. They're not talking about that until they've announced it.
Weird.
Yeah, it is weird, because it feels like I've heard lots of people talking about it. I don't even talk personally, people, it's just, yeah. Yeah.
Should talk about it, it's like.
About like the one that everyone's talking about. It's going like, what, you mean like democracy? That's kind of endangered. isn't it?
Sure is.
Brian, before you put your
Yeah.
computer away, we need to come up with a date.
Meeting.
Yeah,
Make a quick comment too, Alan, before you.
yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Just to note that we have been talking about tricolors and northern long-eareds in the mammal SAG group, so we're happy to support needs that the committee has for that. I think it would be good to have Alyssa come in. Meg Loud is also a bat expert who's on the group as well that could comment. But I think that announcement on tricolors is supposed to come in this year, maybe this summer, possibly September. So it's coming. I mean, Roz, you're probably well informed on all of
Yeah.
this, but again, it's been on our radar. So happy to assist.
Yeah, they keep saying it's coming.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it gets pushed, but
Yeah.
sure it'll be this year.
Okay. That's great.
So Roz, it seems like there's been some bad weeks in September for department people. Do you know what those are or why?
Not at all.
Okay,
Don't have anything for you there.
okay. So maybe it was just a mark thing back in the day.
I wouldn't, I wouldn't,
So,
so I
Okay.
don't think
What
there's
about-
anything
I
significant.
mean, early September, first week in September. Third or fourth.
yeah, I mean, I think all those, I mean, Tuesdays sometimes get bad for me, but they're not for the fall. So I think the 3rd, the 10th, or the 17th, any of those are fine for me. What's it like for the rest of the team?
Other faculty members.
The 3rd is not good for John Austin.
Okay,
We can't,
I will definitely be out the week of the 16th. That wouldn't work. Might be out the week before, but,
how's the 10th
And
I'll
then?
be out
Okay,
the week
yeah.
of 10.
oh.
I'll be out the week of the 16th.
You can't get all of us.
Can't get all of it.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be nice to get ESC folks. So you would be good on the 10th, Ally?
Yeah, I mean, the week of the 3rd would actually work better for me, but yeah, I could hopefully swing the 10th.
Third would be better for me.
You're saying the 3rd itself is bad for John?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Are other days that week? Okay.
fourth.
Like, what's the 4th? Okay,
Fifth?
4th?
I have a training I'm doing on the 4th, but how about the 5th?
Yeah, I can't do the 5th.
Sixth?
Friday?
We've never done a Friday before. That'd be a new thing.
Friday's fine with me.
Friday works for me.
Not so much for me.
What's the matter?
Okay. All right.
Half the time we have to have beers.
I think we're- Yeah, all right. I'm gonna say the 4th then.
Oh, I lose.
What was that New Yorker cartoon? Guy standing at his desk going, how about never? Does never work for you?
Always. Do you want to pick out a January just to get one on the books? Okay, let's do it. My January schedule is probably a little bit more complicated. Jed, do you know, do classes start on the 21st or the 14th? You know?
Muted.
20th is MLK Day, so. Sorry,
Okay,
let me check. We're
Yeah.
usually the day after, right? So I'm
Right,
guessing the
yeah.
21st.
yeah, so I think for me, it would be much easier to do something the week of the 13th.
So spring 2025, first day of classes is January 13th.
Oh, crap.
Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
It's early for you guys.
yeah, okay. I'll just have to skip class. Yeah, I think for me, it's probably a Tuesday is gonna be the better day, but not the 14th. The 14th would be a bad day for me to skip. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I would say maybe go to the next week then.
Wait, why not the week of 7th, the week of the 6th?
Week of the 6th is, it would be fine for me. How's that work for people? Okay,
It doesn't work for John, but I mean,
I'm only
he has a
at-
meeting, but it doesn't start till 1, so he could,
Yeah.
what does it,
You can make most
does
of
he
it.
have good days that week?
all the rest of the days are open.
Oh, just not the,
Just 1 to 3 on the 7th, so
Okay.
it's like, he
Oh.
can, if that works for everyone else,
I
he'll
I
figure it
mean,
out.
8th or 9th are fine for me as well. Anyone have a preference?
8th.
8th? Okay, all right. Do the 8th.
Send out.
I'm only adjunct. I do whatever I want.
Perfect. I can now ignore all these meetings that have been put onto my calendar until the end of time, so.
Wait, are you still assistant? Are you?
I'm
Assistant
still
dean?
interim dean.
You're
I've got,
interim dean.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
72 more days to go.
But who's counting? Judge next?
Yeah, no comment. Thanks, everyone. Great meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Anyone going into Montpelier?
Yeah, I am.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. I go walk down. It's a nice day, right? But I'll take a ride.
All right.